Absolutely nothing beats windshield time. Welcome back to Dan the Road Trip Guy, a podcast where we have candid conversations about life lessons learned on the road. I'm your host, Bimmer enthusiast and road trip extraordinaire, Dan Neal. And now, on to the show. This episode today is a little bit of a drive down memory lane for me. I have two guests on with me today. And 44 years ago, next weekend, not this weekend, I took a road trip with the both of them from Nuremberg, Germany to Silverstone, England to the Formula One race, to the British Grand Prix. Just so happens that race is running today, and I thought, what better time to catch up with these two guys. One is my big brother, Scott Neal, and his good friend that he met in Germany, Herb Hemenway. Herb is in Minnesota, Scott's in Lexington, I'm in Cincinnati. We're taking a virtual road trip. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Oh, it's fun to do.
Yeah.
Herb is a first-time guest on the show. Herb, take a warm-up lap. We'll go around Silverstone, so that's about a minute and a half or so for a warm-up lap. Tell my listeners, who is Herb Hemenway?
A very boring guy. Let's see. A quick roundup since our Army days, which where there was good times. Scott befriended me when I showed up in Nuremberg, kind of guided me through my first year there. And then I went on to an assignment up in Frankfurt, ended up staying there 3 years. Then after that, I left the Army and came back to Minnesota. They were kind of the heady days of the computers. And so I went to work for IBM for a while, and then in several jobs of applying computers to businesses to help them make money. And so I did that for, a ton of years, and I retired 4 years ago. I had wanted to do something other than computers and business and such. And so for the last few years, I was working on writing a book. It's a fiction crime novel, and it's finished. In fact, we should be launching it here on Amazon within a month or so. It's called The Stonehenge Murders.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That I wanted to do something entirely different. Instead of bits and bytes and stuff that were all, and I was a math major in school, and instead of all those well-defined things, I wanted to write some fiction, which is all over the board, and there's no well-defined at all. And so it's actually been kind of fun.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Can't wait to pick that up. Family?
Yes. I have Alice, my wife Alice, and I have, we have 4 kids. And nowadays we even have, I think it's like 11 grandchildren. My goodness. Again, it makes me feel old talking about that. But so, yeah, lots of family, and most of them are nearby. So it's fun to see them and the kids, quite often.
Well, that's great.
Sounds like they took after mom and dad and having children,
Yeah.
I think I was there for the birth of 3 of them. Was it 3?
Yeah, 3 of them were in Germany. We had one before we went over there. I was convinced it was the water over there, but it turns out it was something else, and I actually ended up figuring it out. Anyway.
That's great.
Just 4 wonderful children.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. Now I'm going to share with you my memories of that trip from Nuremberg to England. And here's what I remember, and you guys can then correct my story, and maybe it's just something I dreamed up. I remember we left, I believe, on a Thursday evening. I know it was in the dark, and you guys had finished up, I guess, your day, and we headed off toward the English Channel. And I remember us crossing the English Channel in the middle of the night with the car. So we had Scott's car. And I remember sleeping in the back seat of that tiny BMW 320i. And I remember daybreak very vividly, and I have photos of it to prove it, the cliffs of Dover. And then we got off and we made our way to the racetrack. And this, I don't know if this is correct or not, but what I remember is we camped at the racetrack. Now, I could be totally wrong, but I remember us camping one night, and then we stayed in a hotel in London one night. And I have a picture of that hotel, and it was called the Academy Hotel. and on the sign it said centrally heated. And I remember the room had 3 twin beds and the bathroom and shower were down the hall. And so we enjoyed hanging out in the paddock, walking the track on a Saturday, which I don't even know if you can do today without paying mega dollars. And as I told Herb before the show and Scott, I still have a poster from that race hanging in my basement, framed. And I think the ticket price for race day was £10. So I'm sure it's much more expensive today. So that's my memory of that trip, gentlemen. So you can tell me if I am way off base or if that's what you remember. But to me, it is a road trip I will always remember.
I told Jennifer about the chandelier in the room where we stayed was I think Herb remembers that too.
It's the one thing I remember.
And what do you remember about it?
I remember your choice of chandelier. I remember this just electric line run down, and there was a bulb on the end and a switch, and it hung in the middle of the room, and that was it. The one thing. And I remember we paid so much money for this room. You know, it is. I mean, Spartan would be generous, but I remember that single light bulb. So chandelier, I mean, you were joking, right? I mean, it's not that my memory's gone bad. So
no, that's how I described it. You described it just as I did to Jennifer.
So did we actually camp at the racetrack, or did I not remember correctly?
Yeah, I think we had our tent, didn't we?
We did. I'm pretty sure we had a tent.
Huh.
You and I camped at some racetrack over there. I'm not for sure if it was
okay.
that.
I'm pretty sure it was that racetrack. And then I remember you and I took another road trip and we camped someplace in Switzerland.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You mentioned walking through the paddock, and I remember that vividly, and have, as you did there, contrasted that with today. I mean, you have to pay big time bucks in order to walk the paddock. But I recall we just walked through, and you could look into not just the cars. I mean, you could look into the engine compartment, stroll on and look at the next car. And I've often thought about that's just unheard of today.
Can't even hardly get close to them today.
I remember another one that a similar thing is that we were able to walk a fair amount of the track. I remember distinctly walking down the Hangar Straight to, it would have been almost to, it would have been Stowe. I mean, that again is unheard of. I've gone to the Canadian Grand Prix, 3 times now, and you can kind of walk sort of close, but nothing like we were able to do at Silverstone.
Well, one of my memories was how much patience you guys had with me driving on the wrong side of the road.
I remember that, and in particular, I recall coming up over a rise. You know, it was you couldn't quite see more than just over the top, and I remember coming up over it, and all of a sudden a car comes the other way, and your instinct was to like swerve to the right side of the road, which would have been disastrous. I was in awe that we didn't hit somebody or somebody hit us. Yeah, it was a challenge.
It was a trip for sure. That and just putting the car on the boat and all the humanity that we saw on the boat, getting over and back. Who came up with that idea, Herb?
You know, I don't know. I'm going to blame you because as I have for, I guess it's 45 years now, that the very first Formula One trip or a race that I went to was in Hockenheim in Germany. And I remember that you convinced me to go, and you picked me up at like 5:30 in the morning or something like that. And I'm saying, oh, this was a mistake. And I just said, how did I got to quit being such a nice guy. But we went to that race, and I had the best time. I remember it distinctly, that it was so much fun. The atmosphere of these huge crowds and the noise the speed of it all. And within a few weeks, we threw Alice in the back of your BMW and went down to Austria, the Österreich ring, and I have been hooked ever since. So I blame you entirely.
She was pregnant with one of your children, I remember.
Yes.
And we were driving down the road, and she indicated that she had gotten a bit hungry, and I made the comment, well, we need to feed the mother.
Yeah, I remember that line. Yes. Good one.
Love Alice. Yeah. Yeah, that's those are a couple of the memories. Yeah, I remember that trip. I remember that trip well as well. I didn't realize, I guess, that I was the instigator of your Formula One fandom.
Yeah. Oh yes, absolutely. And I thank you for it all the time. So
Alice probably not so much.
Oh no, she's an avid fan. She loves to watch along with me. We watch qualifying and the races together, and she knows the driver. She was all excited for Lando Norris today, who had pole for about 30 seconds and then ended up at P2. No, it's great fun. I'm sitting here. I still have my Ferrari shirt on. I usually wear one of my Ferrari shirts when I watch qualifying or the race. It doesn't seem to help much, but so I've been a Ferrari fan for a long time.
Well, you both have, sounds like, some great memories from your time together in Germany. One of you or both of you, tell me, how'd you meet?
This is yours, Scott.
I was tasked with being Herb's sponsor. When you're coming in, when you're a new officer coming into Germany, you have someone who's been there for a while, and I think I've been there for at least 6 months. When he arrived in early February, and I picked him up at the train station, it was a cold evening. Herb got off the train in his shirt sleeves.
Okay.
And I made some comment about that. Didn't you hear that it's cold over here? I recall that his remark was, well, I'm from Minnesota. This isn't cold.
This is balmy for me.
Yeah, that's where we met and when we met, and we've now enjoyed 44 years of friendship.
Yeah, for sure.
And, kept in touch. One of the few people that I have kept in touch with from my Army days.
Yeah, fun.
And then Alice wasn't. She came later, right? She didn't come with you.
Correct. Yep. She was back in Minnesota for a month or two. You had to have housing before they would allow you to bring your family.
Yeah.
And did you go to the Army out of college, Herb?
I went to we were both in the transportation course, so I went to Fort Eustis to do sort of like officer basic kind of stuff. Let's see. I went to Fort Knox, not too far from you there, for what was that called? This kind of motor school or something.
Yeah, something like that. I didn't do that one. I did. Interestingly enough, they sent me to data processing school, computer school.
Really?
They sent you to the motor school, and so you're the one that wound up in computers.
Yeah.
That's the Army. That's the Army for you.
That would be the Army. Yep. So I did that. I went through ROTC in college and stuff, and then that was another Army thing. Actually went on to grad school for 2 years, but then picked up the normal sequence of transportation school and then motor school. I think I went to one other thing in there somewhere, and then over to Germany. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were in First Transportation Company.
Right.
And when we got there, Captain Larry Bowser was the commanding officer. That year, we had 41 trucks, and Herb and I were platoon leaders. I think it was 41 trucks, but we managed to put out at least 60 trips a day during that year that Bowser was the company commander. The company, after he rotated out of command, and we had rotated off, but I think we can take partial credit for the fact that First Transportation Company was the transportation company of the Army that year.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Okay.
What sort of things did you haul? Was it supplies or military equipment, or tell me a little more?
Anything the Army needed to have hauled that could be put on a flatbed trailer. Oh, and the most important thing that we hauled was the mail. We
Okay.
had three trucks that would go to Frankfurt. I think it was Frankfurt or someplace up there. Collect the mail, bring it back to Nuremberg to be distributed to the area down there.
Yeah, a lot of times you didn't even really know much what was on the truck. So, but you had guys hauling them all over everywhere. You used to think of it that if you had a platoon of guys, that they'd be, you'd be daily supervising them and such. And it was nothing like that. These guys are all over Germany and had no idea what it was. I do remember one incident, Scott. Do you remember this one? Occasionally we would haul some, like, let's see, what did we call them? They would have been like armored personnel carriers, but some of them would have
APC,
like weapons mounted on the top, unique things. And you would haul these things to what was it? Grafenwehr was a training area where they'd drive around and try not to hurt themselves and stuff. But anyway, I don't think he was in my platoon, but he was probably in your platoon. But the driver had a low boy for this thing, but went under a bridge, and it was the load was too high, and it clipped the weapon off the top. I mean, it was like $100,000 worth of damage or something, and there were general level officers inquiring about the thing, and it was. Do you remember this?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you were probably personally responsible. So.
Yeah, he was in my platoon. Yeah.
I just remember that, and I said, "Oh, thank God that wasn't me." But most of the time, it was just mundane supplies going all over everywhere.
Dan, these were commercial trucks. They were international harvesters.
Oh, okay.
They weren't big army trucks. They were over the road type trucks. So we were out there on the Autobahn test driving going on a check ride with some of these drivers that had just gotten their driver's license, I think.
Oh, wow.
It was a real.
Oh yeah, they were all real young guys.
Real experience. One of my memories was getting to drive the 4070 was what it was called. And those had B12.
The one big one. It was a cab over thing.
Cab over truck. And
yep.
Larry Maxwell was our high miler. He had
that's right. I remember that name now.
100,000 accident-free miles or something like that. And,
yep.
We were up at Grafenwehr, headed toward Grafenwehr, and he said, "Come on, Lieutenant, get over here and show me what you can do." And so I thought, well, surely I can do this. We were rolling down a hill, and I missed a gear, and we were out of gear. Tank was on the trailer. It was a low boy trailer. And I looked over at Larry, and I said, "This might be the end of your 100,000."
Yeah. Oh boy.
He was responsible. I tell the people who come to talk to Rotary Club about the Army, Herb, I tell them that they make a big mistake by having the young sergeants to come and talk to us, because they should get we old guys who have been out of the Army for 30 years or more, because all we can remember are the good stories.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. There were times that maybe weren't quite so fun, but that's okay. I've long ago forgot those. So.
Yeah, sure.
Well, thank you for sharing those stories. Those are great, and great memories, I'm sure, for both of you. So I know what car Scott had in Germany, Herb, but I don't recall what you were driving. For some reason in my mind, I had a Peugeot, but I don't know if that was right or not. So what was your car?
Yeah. Well, while we were there, I had a Volkswagen. It's actually one it was a Passat that I had bought in the U.S. and had it brought over. I drove that for a while.
Okay.
But just before we came home up in Frankfurt, there were, myself and two other officers there in our headquarters thing. Somehow they learned about this deal on 3 Peugeot 504s that were available, and you could get a great price. So I ended up, buying a Peugeot 504, drove it for, I don't know, maybe just a few months there, and then had it shipped home, and I drove it in Minnesota for, I don't know, at least a year or two. But
Okay.
yeah. When's the last time you saw a Peugeot of any kind, much
Yeah.
less, a 504? So, and it was a diesel. Oh my goodness.
That's cool.
Far cry from that to your Porsche.
Yeah. The Peugeot, I mean, it was a terrible car for Minnesota because it just refused to start in even cold weather, much less really bitter cold that we get, up here in January and such. And the thing was really just a glorified French fruit wagon was all it was. But, and I think top speed was 68, 69. So you were a real menace on the Autobahn. You had to be very careful, going so slow. But it did have torque. My goodness, you could put it in first gear, and I think it would climb up telephone poles. So it was a unique car.
Maybe you should have hung on to that because we don't see many of them today.
No, I don't think Peugeot is sold in the U.S. for, I don't know, 30 years or so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Probably so. Coming near to the end of our virtual road trip, but is there a memory besides those F1 memories or Army memories, something that sticks out from your time in Germany that you just look back on and that was just a great memory?
Well, we had 3 kids over there, and we were really busy with just day-to-day life. Growing up time for our kids. It was the day-to-day stuff. So, I mean, Alice was just being worked to death every day. And we lived in a not a complex, really. It was just sort of it was more than a barracks, but it was for families and such. And she'll tell you about having, you would get your 2 days out of the week to do laundry. And here we had all these kids and diapers and stuff. And you had like Tuesday from 8 to 10 or things like that. So
I make an appointment to have access to the washing machine.
yeah. But anyway, that was fun. And then, I mean, experiencing Germany and stuff. I love the food and the beer and all that stuff.
How about you, Scott? Anything besides those things that stick out?
It was just such a great time in my life, being there, traveling all over. For much of my time there, I was single, and I had a lot more freedom to travel and do things than maybe Herb did. And I spent a lot of time with them. I spent a lot of time with Herb and Alice and the children. Got to know them, and that was just a great treat. Driving has always been, going on road trips. That's always been a thing for me. Driving up and down the Autobahn in the cars that I had. Had a 74 2002 turbo, and I was showing it off to Herb. I'm sure he remembers that first trip after I bought that.
Oh, yes.
74 turbo, and we were driving down the road. What was it that I said to Herb?
He says, I remember you got it, and you were so proud. And here, I mean, this was a real coveted car, and it was. I remember it was just wicked fast. But when we got it, I mean, we were nowhere close to the Autobahn, but we took it out of town. I recall somewhere outside of Nuremberg, and you were hitting the accelerator a little bit and looked in the rearview mirror, and here, I remember your eyes. You turned to look at me. I'm in the passenger side. You looked, and your eyes were like bugging out, and you said, "Oh my God, it's smoking like a freight train." And we looked back, and there was this cloud of blue going out the back. And I said, "Well, it's quick, but does smoke a little." So
yeah,
it's smoking like a freight train.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a fun car.
Well, hey, I've enjoyed my time with you both. I haven't seen Herb in 44 years next weekend.
Okay.
I just really thank you for coming on the show, just sharing some memories with that you have with Scott in particular and our little road trip together 44 years ago.
Thanks for thinking of me. It was fun.
Before we wrap up, Herb, I always give my guests an opportunity to say, hey, and so you got a book coming out. Tell people the title again and how to find it, and hopefully they'll pick it up and enjoy a read.
Yeah, it's called The Stonehenge Murders. Within about a month here, it should be out on Amazon. It's both an ebook, a paperback. Pretty sure we're not going to win any Pulitzer Prizes with this thing, but it's just kind of an entertaining read. I think it's kind of fun. The protagonist or hero, his name is Dino. He's an Italian second generation immigrant. So I think it's kind of a fun story. I think it's a good read.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
I
hopefully
look
people
forward
pick
to
that
it.
up. Yeah, me too.
So,
Scott, how do people find you?
I'm at D. Scott Neal Incorporated, dsneal.com. So check out our new website.
All right. Well, I've enjoyed our trip together, both of you, and hope you have a good weekend and enjoy the British Grand Prix.
All right.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Yep.
Bye.
See you guys. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Dan the Road Trip Guy, and we look forward to having you back again next time. In the meantime, if you want to find me, you can find me on the internet at Danny, D-A-N-N-Y, Neal, Neal.com. Until we meet up again, keep having conversations and keep driving.